All right, mates, welcome back to the channel. JL Scott Fishing and Eats. Here we go. Potomac River Breakdown. Okay, this is another video, part of that breakdown series you can find on the YouTube channel. You can check that out. We've started with up in DC, worked our way down from 14th Street to the DC Bridge to Woodrow Wilson, I-495. Then we worked from 495 down further south. And there will be videos that will also cover your map, but as well as a Part B video to each breakdown series, your nautical charts, okay? Because the Potomac River offers a little bit of challenges for both boaters and kayakers that you want to be aware of. Some danger zones, rules, laws, regulations, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about that right here, right now, especially if you are a kayaker and you are planning on fishing in the Virginia side of the Potomac River, what we have here. And I want to go over a couple of ramps. This map actually highlights the ramps a little bit better than what you normally would get if you did Google or just, Googled in the state park, what you're going to get with the way the map is set up. So you basically, from top down, remember we've stopped above here. We have Marshall Hall right here. Again, as I talked about in the previous video, there's a lot more pleasure boaters, a lot more bigger boaters, big boats, okay, go out of Marshall Hall, okay, than necessarily bass boats. That doesn't mean that you can't launch there. It just means that guys launch at other places, predominantly more. They either launch at Leesylvania, or they launch up in DC, or they launch at Mattawoman, Smallwood State Park, okay? So, but you certainly can launch and go north up to the creeks, like Piscataway, Broad, all of that, or you can go Marshall Hall straight coming down to the Virginia side. And a lot of people do that. And I've done that. And, it's obviously a pretty wide section of the river, believe it or not. Maps are sometimes a little bit, some big water, okay, in the Potomac and the Channel, all right? But it depends on the weather. It depends on, where you are, in terms of convenience to the ramp. And that's what we're going to talk about. So you got Marshall Hall here. In here, you've got Pohick Bay Regional Park. That is a regional park. That is not a state park. That is not a U.S. Department of Interior park, okay? And so its hours may vary. Most of the regional parks are sunrise to sunset. State parks are open late, sometimes 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. Sometimes whenever they feel like open up the gate, depending on the day, depending on the time of year. I'm just going to be honest. It happens. It's not uncommon to have long lines of people waiting outside a state park, okay, before you're allowed to get in or the ramp is open. Not uncommon. Frustrating, but not uncommon. Okay, so you've got Pohick Bay Regional Park up here, kayak launch, etc. Mason Neck State Park, which will provide you right into Belmont Bay, right here. You've got Occoquan Regional Park, which again is a regional park, not a state park, not a U.S. Department of Interior park. Up in the river. And then you've got Leesylvania, which is one of the most popular launches in Virginia to access the Potomac River. A lot of events go out there. A lot of club series go out there. Keep in mind, always be aware that beginning in the month of April, there will be a fishing event on this river, boating every single weekend. Okay? Just understand, it's just a matter of, are they going out of Leesylvania? Are they going out of Smallwood? Are they going out of DC? It's just a matter of the club series. You want to make sure you understand that fact. If you're going fishing on a Saturday and you're just taking your kayak out or taking your boat out, you're going to be dealing with a lot of boater traffic. Big events, 80 boaters to 100 boaters at times, all the way down to like a dozen to 25, depending on what series, what trail, all those things. Depending on whether or not MLF has got a Potomac event going out of Smallwood. Bass is going to go out of Smallwood as well in Maryland. That's who they have a relationship with. So Mattawoman is going to be packed up with boats, okay? Upwards of 200 boats, mates, okay? So you want to be aware of that fact. Okay, so on this map, you've got the refuges here, Mason Neck, and I want to talk about these especially for kayakers. There are areas along the refuge here. There are areas right in here to the west of the Occoquan Wild Refuge. And there's another image here I'll show you that gets it in greater detail. And there are areas, I believe in Featherstone, back in, that you cannot run a motor. Okay, so even if you've got a Torqeedo or a Newport or whatever you got in your kayak, you can't run it, okay, in those particular areas, all right, because that's just the thing that they have. And we can look at that here really quickly. Let me see if I can get this up a little bit. You'll see what I'm talking about. Reminders, non-toxic tackle only, no lead. And these are in the wildlife refuge complexes, mates, that you're allowed to fish. Okay, you're allowed to fish around and in them. As long as you're following the rules and regulations and guidelines, understand they have their own unique rules that you want to be aware of, like no lead. Okay, it's one that's unique to those areas. No one's going to be fishing from the shoreline. Fishing access is via water only. Okay, so there's no access to fishing units by land. So people aren't launching from inside these wildlife refuges. You're coming from the outside in, okay? A refuge permit is not required to fish in the Potomac River National Wildlife Refuge Complex, which includes all of them. And so you've got Featherstone National Wildlife, non-motorized boats only, okay? You've got the next creek fishing unit. I'll show that on the map. Motorized and non-motorized boats are permitted, okay? Mason Neck National Wildlife Refuge, no motorized boats. That's up in that cut, which I'll show you on the map. And then, like I said before, Occoquan Bay on the left, to the north, non-motorized boats only. Okay. Access fishing units are not accessible via land. No boat launches exist on any of the refuge complexes. State municipal boat launches are within a short distance of refuge fishing areas and can be used for the launch and retrieval of boats. So yes, you can fish these areas, but you have to access it from the water, not from land. All right. This is Featherstone right here, and this is where I'm talking about where you're going to get into these areas when you move in through here non-motorized, okay? Did I get that right? I'm pretty sure that was right. I know we've been in there without. Yeah, non-motorized. I was losing my head there for a second. Sorry, mates. Great fish be moving up in the spring and pre-spawn and to spawn. You're going to find that. Man, these are great habitat areas of grass, pads, mats, everything you would think of. For the most part, undisturbed because boats aren't going back up in there. Okay? It's predominantly canoes and kayaks. Okay? So that's important to note. And then you've got the creek here, which is both. You can use motorized or non-motorized, and a lot of people will launch from over here. Some marinas that are down here, fish these. I'm not sure there was, but I think after COVID, I saw a lot more people fishing in and around the marinas, which had never really seen before. So I'll double check that with the marinas, whether or not you're allowed to fish inside the marinas. I think it used to be you couldn't. Now on the bay or on the river to the north coming into Belmont Bay, and then here, I think now post-COVID, either they've changed the kind of rules or whatever, or people just got lax during COVID. I'm not really sure. So just check that out and make sure that you're not violating any of those things. This has got great come late spring grass and all back in here, mates. You need to check that out. That is a beautiful, beautiful, aesthetically appealing area. And they've been putting some things around the backside of the creek for people to, it's like a boardwalk, walkway, all that kind of stuff proposed by the county. Been building that out. Plus access, the marina access and all that stuff has kind of changed a little bit. So it's really, really, really gotten pretty cool. This is the Mason Neck side. So this is across from Featherstone. This is Belmont Bay. George Mason has a retreat center up here. Cane Creek right in here. This is the state park. This is where you've got that non-motorized restrictions up in these areas, okay, to protect the wildlife. They've got like no hunting areas, all that good stuff. And you've got the state park, which is right in here. Okay. Doesn't show it on this map, but the Mason Neck State Park is right here. And you can launch fish the bay. There's great fishing out. We're talking like 60, 70 yards out, deeper water, swim bait fishing, offshore live scope fishing, all that stuff. It's just great. They're resident bass in and all through here, by the way, year round. Okay. It's not a matter of them moving up necessarily. So that's Mason Neck. And then here you're going to have the wildlife refuges here. And then you've got that other creek I was telling you about, okay, which is non-motorized. All right. There are sections through here, and I'm going to cover it in the other companion video to when I do the full map breakdown growing up in Northern Virginia. There's docks that begin along this stretch going south, okay, that offer opportunity when bass are staging before they may move up into the creek shallow. Same with here as in Little Hunting up to the north, or Dog Creek up to the north, Bryan's Cove up to the north, okay, before you get to the 495 bridge, all right, and in that area, and then in and around that area, okay, on the Virginia side. So I covered those in the previous video, all right. And so here again is the overall map for this general area. Again, there is no launch, there is no ramp at Chapman State Park, okay? Keep that in mind. Now, understand, let me see if that, it's not going to show me. Okay, hold on, let me move myself up out of here. 7. Sorry. This is your Mattawoman Slavens Dock, okay? Smallwood would be right down at the beginning of the creek. Slavens Dock is there. In the middle, it goes to the back of the creek. There's also the launch at the Conservancy, further back. But mates, that one, while it's a really great, gets you all the way back in the creek in really skinny water, and especially come spawn, the bass move up in there. The problem with that is oftentimes it's locked and you can't get access to it. And if you try to get through, you're going for a long way, okay, in terms of trying to drag something to get back into the creek. If they've got that gate, if the gates are locked, it's just one of those things where it's just a matter of someone who's got the key is out fishing or whatever, or has come by, it seems, because I've talked to plenty of people that it's like 3 out of 5 times they go, it's locked. Okay. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is that. So just understand that. That's why it doesn't get listed on a lot of maps too, by the way, I think. And then again, of course, Leesylvania, like I said before, down here, predominantly one of the largest and most used access points for the Potomac on the Virginia side. And you've got Powell's Creek in through here. Great fishing, great all-around spring and summer fishing. Many a tournament has been won in Powell's Creek. As many have been won in Powell's Creek, it has been won in Mattawoman, to be honest. Though Mattawoman Creek is probably the most known and the most popular. On the Potomac from people who aren't from here. But locals know that there are creeks, Aquia, Potomac, Powell's on the Virginia side that can be every bit as productive as Mattawoman, especially if you pay attention to the weather and the tide. Remember, this is a tidal fishery, which means your tide, okay, is going to be different all the way up this fishery in terms of when low tide is going to be, right? The further south that you start, okay? So you want to plan, if you want to run the tides or you're going to run and gun, you want to make sure that you know where low tide and what time low tide is going to be and you're where you want to be, and be ready for the move after high tide from low tide into rising tide, okay? And again, it's not a universal. Most people understand this, but there are some people who get confused about this. There's not just one tide, okay? It's a timing thing over the course of hours, okay? And so that's why a lot of people start in DC in these major fishing events is they make the run all the way up to DC and they start in DC and they hit those runoffs and they hit those pylons and they hit those bridges and they hit Smoots Bay and they hit Spoils, okay, and they hit Blue Plains, and then they run down later in the morning to afternoon fishing in the Virginia Creeks or the Maryland Creek and finish up in those areas. Okay, this is why they pre-fish, okay? And they practice this. And there are some that are absolute experts at running the tide, okay, and understanding. And those guys outperform everybody else on the tidal fishery because they kind of understand what the fish behavior is, what they're going to be doing an hour before the low tide, and then what they're going to be doing an hour, hour and a half after the low tide, right? What triggers the whole fishery, right? And so you want to watch those things. But that's just this area. It's just a subset to the Potomac Breakdown series. I'll list this as Featherstone, Occoquan Bay. And so you can find it easily on a map. Or if you want this information, this exact information, just message me, JL Scott Fishing and Eats, or message in the comments. Reach out to me on TikTok. Message me on TikTok, Instagram, JL Scott Fishing and Eats, JL Scott Fishing and Eats on Facebook. And I'll shoot you this link, and you can examine it and use these maps and use this information. And you can determine what is going to be your preferred launch point. It's going to get you where you want to be at the specific times. Okay, if you need information on the nautical data, you can message me as well. And if you need information on the tide data, okay, the site's just going to show you all the tides for all these locations on the Potomac. You can hit me up. I'm an open book. It's called Unlock 2023. That's the goal of this series, and everything going forward in 2023 is to share everything, the wealth of knowledge about our regional fisheries to help you become a better angler. So keep that in mind, and if you have any questions, hit me up. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow the channel if you haven't. Come over on Facebook and join us on Facebook as well. I think we got about 1,500 followers on Facebook, over 20,000 on YouTube, and over 4,000 on TikTok. Okay, so come be part of the gang, if you will. And again, take a kid fishing.